The ultimate dirty game narcissists play when you're unbreakable. Have you ever stood up to a narcissist, not with anger, not with revenge, but with quiet strength, and watched them struggle to break you? You didn't fall for their manipulation. You didn't give in to their games. You didn't react the way they wanted. And that terrified them. Because if there's one thing a narcissist fears most, it's someone who sees through them and still walks away. That person is you. Someone too strong. Someone too aware. Someone they simply cannot defeat. So what happens when a narcissist realizes you are unbreakable? Do they let go? Do they move on? Or do they resort to something far more dangerous, something they don't even admit to themselves? Today we're going to reveal the ultimate dirty game narcissists play, when they realize you can't be destroyed based strictly on behavioral patterns observed by psychological professionals. This isn't about love or hate. It's about power. And when they lose control over you, they change tactics. Because if they can't destroy your body, they'll try to destroy your mind. Let's start by understanding a core truth. Narcissists operate from a place of emotional fragility disguised as strength. They build their world around dominance, control, and influence over others. Their sense of power depends on how much they can manipulate, confuse, or emotionally destabilize the people around them. When they meet resistance, especially from someone who refuses to be broken, it disrupts everything they believe about themselves. Here's what happens psychologically when a narcissist realizes you are indestructible. 1. They begin to obsess over your weaknesses, even if you don't have any. Narcissists thrive on finding flaws in others, not to help them grow, but to use those flaws against them. When they realize you won't break under pressure, they shift into obsession mode. They replay conversations. They analyze your words. They imagine ways they could have handled things differently. Their goal? To find cracks, real or imagined, so they can convince themselves that you can be broken. Even if you've already walked away and moved on, they continue searching for vulnerabilities because if they can picture you falling, it gives them false comfort. Because to a narcissist, winning doesn't mean defeating you in reality. It means defeating you in their mind. 2. They try to rewrite history to make themselves the winner. One of the most common behaviors among narcissists is rewriting history. They tell themselves stories that paint them as victims, heroes, or misunderstood geniuses, whatever serves their ego best. But you were part of their story. Moments when you stood up to them. Times when you exposed their flaws. Instances when you chose yourself over them. These memories disrupt their fantasy. They don't align with the version of reality they've created, and because of that, they can't fully erase you from their minds. So instead of accepting that you left and stayed gone, they rewrite the ending. They tell themselves they were the ones who ended things. They tell themselves you were unstable. They tell themselves you were the problem. Because if they can twist the narrative to make themselves look like the victor, even in their own head, they feel safer, even if it's all lies. 3. They project their pain onto you. Psychologists observe that narcissists often engage in projection, the act of placing their own flaws, insecurities, and emotions onto others. And when they realize you can't be manipulated, they begin projecting their internal instability onto you. They tell themselves and possibly others that you are the one who's broken, that you were always the unstable one, that you were never truly whole. Why? Because if they can convince themselves that you were the fragile one all along, then maybe you weren't as strong as they feared. Maybe you only appeared unbreakable. Maybe you're hiding pain. Maybe you'll eventually collapse just like everyone else. And that belief becomes their final defense mechanism. Because if they can't destroy you physically, they'll settle for destroying you mentally in their own mind. 4. They search for new ways to trigger you even from afar. Once they realize you're no longer reacting the way they want, narcissists often switch strategies. Instead of direct confrontation, they begin testing your silence. They might reach out indirectly through mutual friends, social media comments, or cryptic messages. They watch your life from a distance, checking your updates, your posts, your presence online. Every interaction, every sign of emotion becomes data. Did you respond? Did you show weakness? Did you seem affected? If not, they retreat, but not for long. Because narcissists don't give up easily. They may not attack openly anymore, But they play the long game. They wait. They watch. They search for any sign of vulnerability. Because if they can trigger you even once they win, and that imagined victory keeps them emotionally invested in your downfall. 5. They idealize you, but only to justify their failure. One of the strangest paradoxes of narcissism is that they often idealize people after they've lost them. When you stop talking to them, they start remembering only the good parts, the times you gave them attention, validation, emotional energy. Suddenly, you become the one who got away, the person who was different, the one who knew them better than anyone else. Of course, they won't say this out loud, but inside, they begin to rewrite history, painting you as someone special, someone irreplaceable, someone who mattered more than they ever let on. Not because they loved you, but because you represented something they struggled to replace: familiarity, emotional stimulation, and a mirror to their hidden truths. And that idealization becomes their silent torment. Because now, they carry the memory of someone they couldn't control, someone who saw through them, someone who escaped, and that makes you unforgettable. 6. They use social media to stay connected even when you aren't, even if you've cut contact completely. Chances are the narcissist has found ways to keep tabs on you. Maybe they follow you under a fake account. Maybe they ask mutual friends about you. Or maybe they just check your profile occasionally, scrolling through your life from a distance. Every post, every photo, every update triggers something in them: envy, confusion, anger, regret. And because they're incapable of letting go, these digital breadcrumbs keep you fresh in their minds even years after you disappeared from their life. It becomes a cycle. They check your page, they feel triggered, they imagine scenarios where they reinsert themselves into your life, they obsess over what you're doing. It's like emotional junk food, bad for them, but impossible to resist. Because they need to feel connected, even if that connection is one-sided and imaginary. Because if they can still see you, then maybe you haven't really left. 7. They try to reinsert themselves into your life but fail miserably. Eventually, most narcissists attempt to return, not necessarily with apologies, but with subtle reappearances. They may message you. They may appear unexpectedly. They may try to provoke you. But here's what happens. You don't react. You don't engage. You don't fall for it again. And that non-reaction, that calm detachment, is what truly breaks them. Because they expected fear. They expected confusion. They expected you to still be emotionally invested. Instead, you're standing tall. And that proves something terrifying. You're free. And freedom is the ultimate betrayal. 8. They become trapped in their own failure. Narcissists don't handle failure well. They hate the idea of being outsmarted, outmaneuvered, or outgrown. And when they realize that you, someone they believed they could manipulate, has become untouchable, it becomes a symbol of defeat. Because you resisted their pressure. You broke free from their grip. You walked away calmly, confidently, permanently. And that kind of escape leaves an echo in their mind, one that never fades. Because unlike others who stayed confused or broken, you vanished. And now, you're healing. Without them. 9. They carry the echo of defeat, and it never fades. Narcissists don't forget failures, especially the ones they can't explain. And losing you, truly losing you, becomes one of those failures. They replay the moments you resisted them. They imagine ways they could have handled things differently. They search for the exact moment they lost control. But no matter how hard they try, they can't rewrite the ending. Because you didn't just leave. You left with awareness. And that kind of departure leaves an echo, one that never fades. Because you were the one person who got away. And now, you're the one person they can't seem to forget. 10. They live with the quiet terror that others might see through them too. The most disturbing realization for a narcissist is knowing that if you saw through them, someone who once gave them emotional fuel, and now gives them nothing, then others might too. What if others notice the same things you did? What if someone else begins asking questions? What if the mask finally slips for everyone to see? That idea spreads like a virus in their mind. Because you weren't just someone who left. You were someone who left knowing. And that knowledge lingers not just in their memory, but in their fear. Because if one person saw through them, the illusion begins to crack. And once that crack appears, It can never be fully repaired. 11. They miss the emotional rhythm you created and try to recreate it. Narcissists may act like they move on easily, like they replace people effortlessly. But the truth is, not all sources of narcissistic supply are created equal. You were unique. You understood their games. You reacted until you didn't. And that shift from engagement to detachment disrupted their emotional rhythm in a way they haven't been able to replicate. They search desperately for new people who give them the same kind of stimulation. But nothing quite matches what you offered. Not just attention or admiration, but resistance, challenge, awareness. And that absence continues to haunt them. Because no matter how many new people come into their lives, none of them quite match the emotional dance they had with you. None of them challenge them the same way. None of them leave them feeling as shaken, and that's why they can't forget you. 12. They fear that you hold truths about them no one else does. Empaths and emotionally intelligent individuals often end up carrying the most damaging weapon of all, truth. You notice the inconsistencies. You recognize the manipulation. You began to understand the mechanisms they use to maintain dominance. And now, you've taken that knowledge with you. That's why they can't forget you. That's why they sometimes try to reappear in your life. That's why they watch from a distance. Because you represent something they can't undo. You saw through them. You left on your own terms. You stayed gone. And that means you hold the real story, the version of events that the narcissist can't erase. And that knowledge lingers in the narcissist's mind like a ghost they can't exorcise. 13. They lose control, and that makes them desperate. Control is the narcissist's greatest weapon. And when they realize you aren't falling for their tricks, when they see that you've stopped giving energy, stopped reacting the way they want, and stopped offering emotional fuel, they panic. Because now, they're faced with something they can't manage. A person who saw through them. A person who refused to play the game. A person who walked away and never looked back. And that lack of control makes them desperate. They try to pull you back in. They send cryptic messages. They reappear unexpectedly. But you don't fall for it. And that refusal to react strips them of their power. Because the second you stop giving them your energy, your attention, your time, your emotional space, you take back control. And that's the sound of them beginning to suffocate. 14. They cannot destroy your peace, and that destroys them. The most devastating thing you can do to a narcissist is choose peace. Because while the narcissist remains stuck in the past, repeating the same destructive behaviors, you are moving forward. You are rebuilding. You are choosing peace, and that growth, that independence is unbearable for them. Because it proves that their presence wasn't essential, that your healing didn't require their permission, that your life is improving, and they had nothing to do with it. And that's a wound that never heals. Because deep down, the narcissist knows the truth. You were the one who saw through them. You were the one who walked away. You were the one who healed without them. 15. They watch you heal, and that becomes their silent torment. Perhaps the most painful realization for a narcissist is knowing that you're thriving without them. While they continue circling the same patterns, repeating the same destructive behaviors, you are becoming stronger, wiser, and more grounded. This contrast is unbearable for them, because it proves that you didn't need them to be happy, that you were better off without them, that you found peace without them. And that's a blow no amount of grandiosity can cushion. Because deep down, the narcissist knows the truth. You were the one who saw through them. You were the one who walked away. You were the one who changed everything. And now, you're healing. Without them? 16. They realize you broke the cycle, and that changes everything. Narcissists live in cycles: idealization, devaluation, discard, replacement. They move from person to person, relationship to relationship, always searching for new sources of supply. But you broke that cycle. You didn't return calls. You didn't answer texts. You didn't reappear. You simply left and stayed gone. And that complete detachment is something the narcissist rarely faces. Because for the first time, they weren't the one who ended things. Someone else did. And worse, that someone doesn't look back. 17. They can't handle resistance, and you were the ultimate resistor, To a narcissist, resistance is rare. Most people comply. Most people tolerate. Most people accept the version of reality the narcissist creates. But you? You challenged them. You set boundaries. You stood up for yourself. And once you did, you became unpredictable. Because unlike others who stayed confused, you broke free. And that defiance, that refusal to be controlled, sends shockwaves through their world. Because if one person escaped them, if one person resisted, then others can too. And that's the beginning of the end for a narcissist power. Because once the pattern is broken, the illusion begins to fade. 18. They carry unfinished business and you're still part of it. Narcissists hate unfinished business. They don't handle unresolved emotions well, especially when it comes to people who walked away. You weren't just another person in their life. You were someone who left and stayed gone. No begging, no chasing, no confusion, just silence. And that silence feels like defeat, because unlike others who stayed emotionally invested, you removed yourself completely. And that finality, that lack of closure, keeps them trapped in the past. They replay your memory. They imagine alternate endings. They search for proof that you still think about them, because if you're still thinking about them, then maybe you're not free yet. And that thought, however false, becomes their last hope. 19. They experience cognitive dissonance, and that shakes their identity. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort a person feels when faced with conflicting beliefs or behaviors. For a narcissist, one of their strongest beliefs is that they are powerful, that they can destroy anyone, that they can shape reality. But you defied that belief. You didn't break. You didn't crumble. You didn't internalize their gaslighting. And that contradiction creates inner conflict. They begin to question their influence, their tactics, their ability to maintain control. And in doing so, they realize something terrifying. You saw through them. You left on your own terms. And now you're healing. Without them. 20. They try to erase you from their story, but you keep slipping back in. Narcissists rewrite history constantly. They tell themselves stories that paint them as victims, heroes, or misunderstood geniuses, whatever serves their ego best. But you were part of their story. You witnessed moments they can't erase. You were there when their mask slipped. You challenged them and they couldn't control you forever. And no matter how many times they try to twist the truth, those memories remain. Moments when you stood up to them. Times when you exposed their flaws. Instances when you chose yourself over them. These memories disrupt their carefully constructed narratives. They don't align with the version of reality they've created, and because of that, they can't fully erase you from their minds. They might tell themselves you were nothing, that you were replaceable, that they never cared. But deep down, they know better. And that's why they can't forget you. So here's the truth. When a narcissist realizes you are unbreakable, when they understand that all their efforts to destroy you failed, they begin to suffer internally. They experience cognitive dissonance. They doubt their influence. They fear exposure. They miss the emotional rhythm you created. They carry the weight of defeat. But none of it reflects your worth. None of it means you should go back. None of it changes the fact that you made the right choice walking away. What it does mean is that you had more impact on them than they'd ever admit, and that's empowering. And while they may still think about you, you no longer have to think about them. Because the moment you stopped giving them your energy, your attention, your time, your emotional space, you reclaimed your power. And that's something no narcissist can ever truly forget. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, healing begins the moment you stop giving your energy to those who never deserved it. Stay strong, stay wise, and most importantly, stay free.